Michael, let's talk about the Cooper color system.
That sounds great. So you mentioned Cooper. Colonel Jeff Cooper was a very well-known guy and unfortunately passed away a few years back. Jeff Cooper came up with something that's very, very key that we teach in these personal protection classes called the Color Codes of Awareness. And Colonel Cooper even came up with the universal safety rules, so really a brilliant guy. Jeff actually learned these from the Marines. He'd served in World War II in Korea, and he learned color codes there that helped Marines really kind of ratchet up their level of awareness and their preparations for when something was about to happen, and he taught that now to civilians. 4 color codes, condition white, condition yellow, condition orange, and condition red. Condition white is what you don't want to be in. In fact, I tell my students the only time you want to be in condition white is when you're sleeping and you can't help it. Condition white is you're completely unaware of what's going on around you. You don't think anything bad will happen. In fact, people in condition white tend to think bad things or crimes will happen to other people, and of course that's not true. We mentioned modern technologies. If you look at the average shopping mall or the average parking lot in front of a large strip mall, you're going to see just about every other person walking down the street talking on their cell phone, sending a text message, listening with their earbuds in, completely unaware of what's going on around them. One thing that you mentioned earlier is that people in condition white also may fail to recognize emotions in other people. They might not recognize aggressiveness, or they think they can talk their way out of trouble, which of course is not going to happen. If a bad guy wants your money, your wallet, or your life, he's gonna take it.
You know, Michael, one of my favorite stories or anecdotes that really does a good job of explaining condition white is, think of the last time that maybe before you learned about this and you were driving your car down the street, you came up to a stop sign, it was a 4-way stop, there were other vehicles, you went through, and if someone were to ask you, what was the color of the car that just went past you?
You'd have no idea.
You wouldn't even know.
You wouldn't be observant at all.
That's condition white.
And that's what the criminals look for. It's unfortunate to say, but most victims of violent crimes were in condition white. And that's not blaming the victim. That's simply saying that criminals are going to look for a target, and they're going to look for someone in condition white.
Exactly.
One other point we make is, if you are going to be armed, if you are a permit holder, you can never allow yourself to be in condition white when you're carrying, because an armed conflict could occur that you could have avoided.
Yep.
Next, condition yellow.
Condition yellow is next, and the neat thing about, a lot of people get a little concerned when they learn this, thinking, man, how am I going to train myself to always live in condition yellow? But what we're going to explain is that it's very simple to make this a way of life. So let's talk about condition yellow.
Yep, that's exactly right. So in condition yellow, you're simply aware of your surroundings. So that means when you're out in public, be observant. Lift your head up, observe what's going on around you, occasionally glance behind you, and don't be afraid to look at things. If you hear footsteps, turn and look. It doesn't mean that you're being rude. You're aware of what's happening in the immediate vicinity. It doesn't mean you're paranoid or overreactive. It simply means you're aware of what's going on.
That's a good point. A lot of people, when they first think of this, like, well, that's paranoia, but it's not that at all.
That's exactly right. And your eyes and your body posture say that you're alert. You take those quick glances at people that are around you, and you're comfortable with simple habits. One thing that I now do that have kind of conditioned myself to this is, when I walk in a room, I look around. Might be a restaurant, might be a street corner that I'm coming up to, but instead of walking up and going straight to my table or walking up and crossing the street, I'll simply glance around and see what's going on around me. You know, that can help me avoid a violent crime, but it can also help me avoid getting hit by a bus as well. So simple observations.
You know, Michael, one of the neat things that my wife has kind of become conditioned to get used to is, whenever her and I walk into a restaurant and we're seated at the table, she automatically allows me to sit with my back to the wall, because she knows that I want the back to the wall so I can see everything in the restaurant.
And that sounds kind of funny, and people might even tease us about that, but violent crimes happen in restaurants, and if you're observing things, you can have the few seconds of warning time to tell your wife, we're getting out of here now.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean that you're waiting to pull your gun out of the holster and start blazing away, but it's simple observation.
Exactly.
So condition yellow is what we want to be in any time we're in public. Condition orange we kind of think of as our spidey sense has gone off, or something has alerted us to something. Maybe the hair on the back of our neck has stood up because we think something might be wrong. And you and I talked about this before, that condition orange doesn't mean you're positive there's a danger or that there's a threat. You're simply aware that something may be wrong, or there may be a problem with what's going on in the area around you. In fact, you may decide to take preemptive action just to get out of there, even without being sure what's going on.
Yep. When you're in condition orange, that's the time where you take that opportunity to remove yourself and literally avoid a potential conflict.
That's exactly right. You might come up with a plan that if this happens, I'm going to leave this way. If that happens, I'm going to leave this way.
Right, exactly.
If this does end up being a threat, I'm going to have to find cover. I'm going to have to find an exit strategy very, very quickly. And you might even begin to give some verbal commands. And new students might have a problem with this as well. Let's say, for example, we're at a gas station and I'm filling up my car and an individual approaches me that's causing me some concern. I don't see a gun, I don't see a knife, I don't see any kind of weapon. It's still okay with me to say, do you mind stepping back, or can I help you? Or it's okay for me to say, don't come any closer and to go into the gas station. I might have just irritated a really nice kid, or I might have protected myself from a violent crime.
Yep.
We also talked about that firearm. We talked about in condition yellow, you want to start thinking about where that firearm is. In condition orange, you might actually start to prepare to access it. We don't mean in this case to pull it out, but if a female has her gun in her purse, she might have the slide her hand in the purse and get her hand on the grips of the pistol or the revolver. If we have a firearm on a belt holster and it's under our jacket, we might slowly begin to get our jacket back so we can get access to it. So we're ready for action.
Exactly.
We're ready for it to drop down to condition yellow, or ready for it to jump up to condition red.
And before we jump into condition red, it's important to understand that condition orange is a luxury for people that decide to live in condition yellow. Because what we're about to learn is that condition red is essentially threat mode, emergency mode. And for people that don't live in condition yellow, they go from white to red. And that's where you don't have a chance to escape. You don't have a chance to avoid. And let's talk about red.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Your alert that you're in condition red is because you've just been hit over the back of the head, or the knife comes out in front of you, or a gun is in your face, and you have no reaction time.
Exactly.
So in condition red, action is immediate. Your mental trigger's been tripped, and that action might be to immediately run in the opposite direction as quickly as you can. It might be to drop down under cover. It might be to expose that firearm and issue a very loud command. It might be to get that firearm up on a potential threat, and it might be pressing the trigger. Our advice to students is always, trust your instincts. You'd rather be wrong about a dangerous situation and have run in the opposite direction than have second-guessed yourself and find out that it was too late. That example of being in a parking garage or in a gas station. I'd rather trust my instincts, tell the person to stop or back up, or get inside the gas station than tell myself this can't be what I think it is and guessing wrong. Yep. Instinct and adrenaline are going to do things to you at this point. Once action occurs, you're going to feel adrenaline in your body.
Oh, yeah, that adrenal stress response is going to kick in. And it's going to affect your fine motor skills. Your
hands might start to tremble. You might discover that you're not feeling your fingers, and opening that holster is going to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, probably experience some tunnel vision too.
What we always tell students as well, of course, if you're engaging the threat, if that's something that you're deciding to do, or you felt that you're forced to do that, there's rules that you have to operate in, and that's another segment we covered, the 4 rules governing the use of deadly force. It's also important to explain a use of force isn't the required outcome. You're not required to get that firearm up and press the trigger. The best way to do this, and the best outcome possible would be you had an avenue of escape, or you could avoid that situation and get out of there. And you may never know whether the threat was real or whether you overreacted, but I can live with that.
Exactly.
So those are the 4 conditions that we're going to really live our lives in. And when we're out in public, we want to be in condition yellow.